A very good morning to you. Lovely to see you again. Oh, we're in this period of waiting, counting down the days till the baby is born. And I was thinking this morning, imagining what it was like for Mary, waiting. Here she was, 9 months after the angel had been to visit her. And those of us who have had babies, have had children, remember what it was like. You get to the stage where you're waddling everywhere, you can't sleep comfortably, the baby kicks at all times of day and night. You're uncomfortable sitting, you're uncomfortable walking, and you can't reach you can't see your feet, you can't reach your toes. You need help putting your socks on, or stockings on, or whatever you're wearing. Those days of late pregnancy are difficult. And of course, you don't know when it's going to happen. Now, we've got a day for celebrating the coming of Jesus when he was born. But the waiting days must have been very difficult. And there she is, getting near to the end of her pregnancy and resting as much as possible, just keeping active, and suddenly there's the census call and she has to travel while she's expecting. And I was just thinking how difficult waiting for the birth of a baby is, and how difficult it must have been for Mary. But it led me thinking about, again, that this marvel, this amazing thing, that Jesus was born, that the Son of God, that God himself became a human being, a helpless, vulnerable human being, unable even to feed himself, and yet he feeds the world. He feeds every living creature, and yet he couldn't feed himself. It's a mystery, isn't it? But I was thinking, in a sense, what happened to him when he came into this world. We follow in his footsteps. And I explain how my thinking has gone this morning. I was thinking about how Jesus was conceived in the womb of Mary by the Holy Spirit, that the seed came from God himself for Jesus to be conceived. And he was born without the intervention of a human father. And in John 1, verse 12, it says about those who come to faith in Jesus, to all who received Jesus, who believed in his name, he gave power to become children of God, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. That when we come to faith in Jesus, when we realize who Jesus is, and we choose to follow him and become disciples, we are born again. We're born a second time, or born anew, as John says in John 3, or born from above. We have to enter the family of God. And just like it's impossible for a baby to be born without anyone realizing it, that you have to be born to be part of a family. So we have to be born to be part of God's family. And we're born of God in a spiritual sense, born from above. We have a new dimension to our lives. I know there are some branches of the church who really find the term born-again Christians very difficult. And those who call themselves born-again Christians do so because they know of people who cannot remember a particular moment in their life when they did give their lives to Jesus, because they were brought up in a family that was a family full of faith, and where prayers were said every day, and they were taught to read the Bible, and the whole of the family life was geared round following Jesus. And they can't remember a moment. But there's a real sense in which every day we make the choice to follow Jesus, to continue to follow Jesus, to follow him as ardently as we did the first day we did it. And maybe you can't remember a day when you actually invited Jesus into your heart, although that is not actually a scriptural term. It's interesting. We give our lives to Jesus, and the reference to inviting him in is from that knocking on the door passage in Revelation 3, that Jesus is at the door of our hearts knocking and asking to come in. But whichever way it happened, we have to be born of God. We have to have that spiritual life born within us, so that as we grow, as we develop, the family likeness starts to show. That we are born of God. We have tendencies within us. We have longings within us from the spiritual part of us that we didn't have before we were born again. We didn't have it before God took up residence in our lives and filled that empty space within us. But the miracle is that in a similar sort of way, not the same way, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying we're all miniature Jesuses, I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is, just in the same way as Jesus was conceived to become human without the intervention of a human father, so we are conceived to become spiritual children of God the Father by the Holy Spirit when we turn to him in faith and when we choose to follow him. It's a miracle. And in this way we are like him, that this new life we have is not something we imagine or create. It is something that God does in us. Let me read that verse again. Have a look at this verse and think about it today. Ponder on it. It is the most profound thing. To all who received him, who believed in his name, he gave power to become children of God, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. Born of God. That's you and me. This is part of the miracle of Christmas, that just as Jesus came and lived in what for him was quite an alien environment, so we live a spiritual life in what now becomes for us an alien environment, because we're born of the family of God and we are aliens in this culture that we live in, because everything in us yearns for the ways of God and the ways of the kingdom, and we become more and more like our brother and our daddy as we emulate him and imitate him and do the things that he asks us to do. So, God bless you. Have a great day. John 1:12 and 13. God bless. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.